Hi there, it's Denise Eckert from Balance Me Coaching. My goal is to help women living in burnout create a more balanced lifestyle. In my experience helping women create a more balanced lifestyle, I realize that other areas in their lives need to be addressed as well. I've now designed my program to include a variety of healthcare providers, nutrition being one of them. So today I have Joe Levine with me. Hi, Joe.
Hi.
So can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I am a nutritionist. I am a holistic nutritionist, which means we really look at everything as a whole. So we look at the mind, the body, all those lifestyle, food, supplement, all the different pieces that basically nourish your body and make you feel your best. And this is a second career for me. So I've always loved food and cooking, but I worked in the corporate marketing world for 7 years before going back to school to become a holistic nutritionist. And I experienced my own host of health issues that came up when I was in my 20s, tons of anxiety, low mood, allergies, food sensitivities, indigestion, and ultimately just complete burnout. And I really didn't understand what was going on and why that was happening to my body. I went to so many different healthcare practitioners, the conventional ones, the alternative ones, and it really wasn't until I started exploring this world of holistic nutrition that I figured out what the root cause was and how to actually heal my body. So now I work with individuals, and also I go into companies and work with teams there to help support them in their well-being.
Wonderful. Now, in your experience working with women in burnout, what are the common symptoms that these women have?
So I find it's one of those things where burnout, you just think, fatigue and literally just like feeling like you can't move or do anything. But I think there are so many other symptoms that come along with it, and we don't always relate them to burnout. So going back to even my personal experiences, things like developing food sensitivities and allergies and chronic indigestion, like that gas and bloating, issues going to the bathroom, stuff like that is all a huge part of burnout. It all stems from stress. And I think it's pretty common. We know now that stress is a huge contributor to illness. We see that come out in, I mentioned the digestive, the fatigue, mood imbalances, anxiety, mood swings, but then also things like cravings, addictions, weight gain, skin issues. And then, it can get to bigger recurring infections and just ongoing health issues that we can't figure out, which is why I really like to work with the individual and figure out, okay, what are your symptoms telling us about what's really going on?
Yeah, it's pretty extensive, eh? So what challenges do you find that women have in burnout, whether it's eating habits or just different things that they do differently than someone that's not under so much stress?
Mm-hmm. I think when we get to that burnout phase, we're so fatigued and we feel so overwhelmed that it becomes really hard to pull ourselves out of it. It's a lot easier when you start with like a perfectly healthy, pristine lifestyle, although honestly, who does that in this world today? But when you're kind of fighting against yourself, you're not just trying to eat better, you're trying to, fight these habits that we've built and these, crutches of maybe unhealthy snacks and unhealthy habits and even unhealthy mindsets that we start telling ourselves we can't do it. And I would say the most common thing, especially with women that I get who are considering working with me, is that they're scared they won't be able to do it. They don't believe in themselves, and they think that it's going to be too hard and they won't be able to, stop eating their favorite food or commit to a change.
So what do you do in cases like that?
Honestly, I would say pretty much every case is like that. I think it's so helpful, with people like you and myself to have that coach with you to encourage you and literally just tell them and show them that they can do it. And I think having my own personal experience dealing with that makes it so much more helpful because I can really understand what's going through their head. So literally any sort of coach that's going to understand you and believe in you and give you the right tips. I think for every person it is different. I think the biggest one for me is, as I mentioned, I'm a food lover and I've always loved cooking and food. So I'm definitely not one of those nutritionists who's into deprivation or taking away your favorite foods. I really try to work with the client and, if we are removing a food that they love, what can we replace it with that tastes equally as good and is going to make them feel better? And that takes a lot of the strain off of, removing that candy or that junk food that provides solace and comfort for them when they are stressed.
Okay, now what tips can you provide here? Just a couple little ones so that people can just start eating a lot healthier.
I think the biggest tip, blanket statement, is just eating more real food. It's such a good place to start. I think we get so stuck in eating packaged foods and foods with labels and ingredients. And sometimes we feel like that's almost easier because we can, count calories or look at how much fat there is, which I don't believe in at all. I truly, honestly believe and have seen with every client that once you start eating the right things, your body doesn't want to eat the wrong things. It starts loving the right things. So just starting to train your body to appreciate, those fresh fruits and vegetables and, clean proteins, whether it's, pasture raised eggs or wild fish or, slow cooked chickpeas and lentils, whatever diet you choose. I think that's such a good place to start. And then looking at, I think one of the big root causes, if we're going back to that root cause discussion, and that's something that every holistic nutritionist, that's how we work, is we don't just look at your symptom and give you something to cover it up. We're really looking back to what's causing that and why are you feeling that way? And, let's look at your history. Let's look at maybe what medications you've taken, what illnesses you've had in the past, what your lifestyle has been like, if there have been stressful moments, and just kind of like peel back those layers and figure out what's really going on so that we can start to build you back up rather than trying to pile on to what's already there. So the number one tip I start with everyone is balancing your blood sugar, which is something I think a lot of people, if they're not diabetic, they think, oh, that's not important to me. My blood sugar is fine. But I would say almost everyone I work with has imbalanced blood sugar, certainly if they're burnt out. We can talk more about what that means. And I work with every client on this. I always educate them so they understand why we're changing the way they're eating and why we're adjusting these meals. But I talk a lot about the three components that go into every meal. And those are healthy fats, fiber, and protein. So every single meal that you make needs to incorporate those because that's going to help to balance out your blood sugar. And the reason we do that is because when your blood sugar isn't balanced, you have these big spikes and drops, and it causes all those symptoms that we're talking about, the anxiety, the mood swings, the nervousness, fatigue, cravings for, more sugars, caffeine, carbs, whatever is going to keep us going because we're so burnt out. So I guess I can give an example of, for example, the fat, fiber, protein could be as simple as a smoothie. So let's say we're making a smoothie and we put some berries and flax seeds in for fiber. And then we put in some healthy fats in the form of coconut milk or half an avocado. And then we put in a scoop of protein powder to provide the protein. That right there is like a beautiful, creamy, delicious, balanced meal. And it takes, 5 minutes max.
Yummy. That's what I find too. When I'm in burnout, I do crave sugar. And because sometimes you're almost in that depression state too, I eat the sugar, which is not so great. And I do, especially I find you spike and you have the energy and then you crash. And I find especially in the afternoons, I have a real big issue with keeping my energy levels up. And what about things like adrenal health and things like that when you're in burnout?
Oh yeah. Adrenals are like one of the first, I would say we talk blood sugar, and then usually after that we get into adrenals. If you're burnt out, your adrenals are shot. Your adrenals are the glands in your body that secrete the hormones to help you manage stress, right? They help you respond to stress. But when they're repeatedly firing, because the reason we're burnt out today is we live in this world where everything stresses us out. We're not in survival mode where we're out in the wild and we only get stressed when a saber-toothed tiger is chasing us or when we're running out of food. Now everything is stressful. Getting a text, getting an urgent email, seeing an ad pop up that you weren't expecting, like all of these little things, they probably happen to you 100 times a day. You're constantly being assaulted with these little stressors, which means those adrenal glands are constantly pumping out. People hear about cortisol as a big hormone that helps us to cope with stress. But we get to this point where our adrenal glands stop functioning and they can't do it anymore. They can't keep up with us. And that's when you get to the burnout phase where they stop working. And so that's something I work with my clients on, is nourishing their adrenal glands with the right nutrients. So not just giving them an herb that's going to make them less stressed or that's going to give them energy. Those are temporary remedies, but we actually get to the root cause once again, and we're looking for the right nutrients that those adrenal glands actually need to get back up to baseline so they can do their job.
Wonderful. Okay, so now focusing on the Burnout to Balance program, can you just briefly describe the steps that you would take with someone to create a healthier lifestyle, nutrition-wise?
Sure. So with what I'm doing with you in the program, every client would work with me for 3 sessions. There's always an option to extend if they fall in love with holistic nutrition. We can keep it going. But in those 3 sessions, we start with my traditional intake, which is so important to me. It's, I get everyone to fill out a diet diary. So they write down what they're eating for a few days and how they feel when they eat those things. And that's so helpful just to understand where they're starting at. Because some people might be starting from a place where they're actually eating pretty well, and maybe there's just a few tweaks. Some people really need to start with basics. So that helps me so much to meet you where you're at. I don't want to load you up with a million crazy foods when really all you need to do is just like start drinking more water and eating a few vegetables. And then in addition, I get you to fill out an intake form that, as I mentioned, talks about your health history and, your physical, your emotional, all those different pieces. And then we have like this amazing first session. So it's usually like an hour and a half, which sounds long, but we're really just getting to know each other so I can understand all the bits and pieces of your life and we can build a plan that works for you. Because that's so important for me, regardless of what's going on and what the ideal lifestyle is. If it's not going to work for you, we need to make sure that we're building a plan that accommodates your work and your family life and your home life and the things that you love to do and your hobbies. And then we work from there. So you always leave the first session with some recommendations. As I mentioned, we usually start talking about blood sugar, and I love to start with breakfast first. So usually you'll leave, I give everyone a customized recipe book, and we start with breakfast and we put in breakfast that you're going to be excited about. So, if we know that you're an eggs person or an oatmeal person or whatever, what can we do to make those healthier and more exciting and more energizing? And then we spend the first, week or 2 just working on that and really building up your energy. And then once you start to see those benefits, it becomes easier to add on. So when we regroup, we talk about what's working, we talk about what's feeling good, what's challenging, and then we continue to build. We add in things like lunches and dinners. And once again, always working with the foods that you love, the flavors that you love. So you leave with another recipe book. We talk about adrenal health. If there are supplements that you need, because as you mentioned with adrenals, when you're stressed, it's really hard to heal your body. So these other issues that you have going on as well, this digestive symptoms, skin issues, hormonal imbalances, whatever they are, we're incorporating in the right supplements along with the right foods in the form of nutrients to actually build your body back up. And then with the program I'm doing with you, we have a 3rd session and we kind of tie all the loose ends together and build a sustainable game plan for you where it becomes easy for you to plan out your meals each week so that you're able to continue doing what we've talked about together well beyond your time with me.
Wonderful. What I love about your work is that you are very individualized. I mean, everybody's different. Everybody has different tastes. So it's not just, this is what you need to do, because even cultural, I know with being a little bit more European background, there's meals that I enjoy, that, I don't want to give up.
I understand. My mom has Polish blood in her, so those potatoes are never going to go.
Exactly. Okay, well, wonderful. Well, thank you for your time today. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the post below. So, yeah, if you're interested in more, just contact me, and I look forward to helping you in the future.